Mr. President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, there's a lot of news that's happening this week, a lot of things going on. Incredible celebration of veterans, and the recognition they are very, very worthy of. That is the 1% in our nation that actually secures the security of the rest of the 99% of our nation. Could not be more grateful from members of my own family, from many of the proud people of Oklahoma that celebrate our veterans every single day of the year, and glad to be able to do that. We have a lot of information this week about Obamacare hearings again. Back in the news because the administration has filed a lawsuit on Little Sisters of the Poor to compel them to violate their faith to be able to put into practice the principles of Obamacare rather than their own personal faith. And so the Obama administration is taking a group of nuns called Little Sisters of the Poor all the way to the Supreme Court to compel them to cave on their faith. That case actually includes 4 universities from my state in Oklahoma as well that are grouped together with this group from Little Sisters of the Poor, that they will all have to go before the Supreme Court to validate their faith publicly in front of the nation while the administration tries to tell them they can't practice their faith in America. We also have news this week that the president's trying to push through Gitmo, and he's trying to change Gitmo through some sort of executive action. We don't know exactly what that is. And he seems to have this flippant attitude about what's going to happen in Guantanamo Bay, saying we can move them into the United States cheaper. Well, I would tell you, as a person who's been down to Guantanamo Bay and has seen that facility and are very aware of what's going on there, we're missing one big element. The terrorists do not know who the guards are at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, nor do they have access to their families. And while they're infuriated about Gitmo, I promise you, if those prisoners are moved into Colorado or Oklahoma or Kansas or any number of other places, the terrorists overseas won't rage about Gitmo anymore. They'll then rage about Colorado, or they'll then rage about Illinois, or wherever those prisoners are being held. They're not mad at Gitmo and the treatment there. They're mad these terrorists that they have affection for are being detained by the United States of America. And right now, all the individuals that are guarding those individuals and keeping them detained will no longer be hidden anymore, because terrorists could linger around the outside of these facilities and could track the different guards that are coming in and out. And suddenly the guards and their family members become exposed, and the states where those individuals are exposed. He is not thinking through the real consequences of flippantly moving these individuals into the United States. It's a big issue that we face. But I have to say, this last weekend, as I'm going through all the different news and the many things that we track, I was quite surprised last Friday afternoon at the way that the president addressed something that this nation has discussed for 7 years, a pipeline permit. A permit called the Keystone XL pipeline. It's not a revolutionary thing, and quite frankly, Mr. President, let me show you something. These are all the pipelines that currently exist in the United States. Right now, there are 19 international crossings of pipelines already coming into the United States, either from Canada into the northern part of the United States or from Mexico in from the south. There are already 19 of them. This would just be a 20th pipeline. There's nothing different about that. There are 60,000 miles of crude oil pipeline in the United States right now. There are about 63,000 miles of refined product pipeline. And if you want to go to natural gas, about 300,000 miles of natural gas pipeline already in the United States. Yet this pipeline is treated like some radical new invention that we've never considered a pipeline before. But what surprised me so much wasn't the 2,600 plus days that this permit request sat on the president's desk. What surprised me was his reason for actually deciding to then not do the permit. That was the surprising part. And quite frankly, last Friday afternoon, as I heard the reasons, I went back and read the transcript, and these were the 3 reasons the president gave. He said, number 1, the pipeline wouldn't make a meaningful long-term contribution to our economy. And he encouraged us to pass a highway bill instead because it would provide more jobs. I don't remember ever discussing and saying this pipeline is going to provide as many jobs as highways. That's never been discussed on this floor. And it's apples and oranges. A highway bill is public funding. It's the taxpayers that actually fund transportation, and we should do highways and transportation. This is a private project that was never intended to be as many jobs as a highway. It's a pipeline. So he said he's not going to provide enough jobs, and so he's not going to permit it. The second reason he gave is the pipeline would not lower gas prices for American consumers. And he said, gasoline prices are already low, and so we don't need this pipeline. As if gasoline prices don't rise and fall and we shouldn't plan for the future. You want to know why gasoline prices are low right now? It's because over the decades, Americans have done this. And we have an efficient system of moving energy, which, by the way, the pipeline is the safest and the least expensive way to be able to move energy around our country. So what the president's saying is, what we have is enough. I don't want to plan for the future anymore. I don't want to look for what's going to help our children. Our prices are low enough. I don't care what our children pay in the future days. Well, that's absurd. But quite frankly, the third one is the one that was the most jarring to me. So I want to be able to say this statement to you. Reason number 3 the president gave was shipping crude oil into our country from unstable countries would not increase America's energy security. Let me read that to you again because I was so stunned by it. Here's exactly from the president's speech off of the White House site. This is what the president said. He will not permit the Keystone Pipeline coming from Canada into the United States off this statement. He said, shipping dirtier crude oil into our country would not increase America's energy security. What has increased America's energy security is our strategy over the past several years to reduce our reliance on dirty fossil fuels from unstable parts of the world. Now, as I heard the president say that, I was a little taken back because I don't remember any other president referring to Canada as an unstable part of the world. That we don't want to get our energy from an unstable country and saying Canada was that country. So I kept reading it and rereading it thinking maybe he was implying something else, but the problem with that is he's either means that Canada is an unstable country and we don't want to be reliant on them to get energy, or he's saying the Middle East and other countries are unstable and we don't want to rely on them, so maybe we should buy from Canada instead. Either way, it makes absolutely no sense. But in its context, as I read it and read it and read it, the president stated we don't need to have a Keystone Pipeline because Canada is unstable. And we don't want to buy energy from unstable countries. I would tell you that since the War of 1812, we've gotten along with Canada pretty well. We seem to have settled our differences about 1815, and they've been a very stable trading partner for us. And it seems nonsensical to me to say, or to hear the president say, because it doesn't produce enough jobs, I'm not going to permit it. Because it won't affect the price of gasoline today, I won't permit it. And because Canada is unstable as a trading partner, I'm not going to permit it. Now, the president can choose to do whatever he chooses to do. But answers like this make no sense to the American people. And they make no sense to the energy country when we understand full well the actual facts on the ground. In recent days, we've actually started an energy swap with Mexico. Many people may not even know that. You see, all oil is not the same. Heavier crude oil is preferred by many of our refineries in the United States. Quite frankly, our refineries are capable of separating out more of the different minerals and such that are within heavy crude, or what's often called sour crude. And so our refineries prefer the heavier crude, much like what Canada produces, many parts of the United States or Mexico produces. Many of the refineries in Mexico actually prefer the light sweet crude. We actually have more light sweet crude now in America than what we can use and what our refineries prefer to have. So in the past couple of months, Mexico and the United States have worked to swap through pipelines that they're picking up about 75,000 barrels of light sweet and swapping us 75,000 barrels of heavier crude because they have a commodity we want and we have a commodity they want. That's how we could solve some of our energy issues, is to actually look for what's the most efficient, whether it's purchasing it from a pipeline from Canada, which makes great economic sense to us, or whether it's exporting our oil anywhere else around the world, whether it's to Mexico or any other country. This body knows full well that the United States cannot sell our oil in the world market because we have a statute in place that believes that we're running out of oil rather than we have a tremendous amount, which is what's actually factually true. And we have particular types of oil, that light sweet crude, that many refineries around the world want. And we actually have more of it than we can use. We should sell that. We should put that on the open market. It's cleaner, it's easier to refine, and it's a way to be able to stabilize jobs in the United States. I have been in front of this body time after time with a simple statement. We can sell unleaded around the world. We can sell diesel around the world. We can sell coal around the world. We can sell natural gas around the world. But for whatever reason, we can't sell crude oil around the world. That makes absolutely no sense, and we should fix it. Tens of thousands of Americans have lost their job because this body has not acted on something as simple as being able to sell a product the world wants and we have on the world market. It's fixable. It's not about environmental disaster. The world is going to use oil. Even the administration, and quite frankly, even the president in his own speech made this statement last week. The truth is the United States will continue to rely on oil and gas. So will the world. Until some other solution is out there, which no one sees currently on the horizon, we're going to continue to use oil and gas. Why don't we do it the cleanest way possible? Why don't we provide American jobs while we're doing it? It's a fixable thing. Shouldn't be divisive. It's about putting Americans back to work and about helping our economy. With that, Mr. President, I yield back.